So, a while ago, I don't know if it was earlier today or if it was another day, I saw a post that was basically like the sound of someone, saying it's not your fault over and over again. And it made me realize something about my childhood and the shit that I went through. Because, it's funny, not funny, haha, but it made me think about how when I was like younger or whatever, people would always, like, I would just get told by my mother at the time that it wasn't her fault and that she didn't know. Every time I would try to bring it up since the time that I was a child or into adulthood, because I was like being abused by the person that she had married or whatever. And every time I tried to bring it up, she would just be like, I didn't know. It wasn't my fault. And then everybody else would keep telling me to like get over it and to let it go and all of that stuff and stop holding on to it and, all of that shit. And it's just like, how do you let something go that you were never allowed to talk about? And I tried so hard to like kind of talk about it or, whatever the fuck. And couldn't because it was always, it's not my fault. And I didn't know. And that's all I got. But I never got it wasn't your fault. I wasn't trying to blame anybody, but it turned into, something that resembled me trying to blame someone. So yeah, I gave up on, trying to communicate anything at that point because it just became this blame game of like, oh, well, it's not my fault. And it's just like, that's not the point. That's not why I'm bringing it up. Because it was always like, why are you like this? Why are you so angry? Why are you like this, like that, or whatever the fuck? And I was like trying to say, like, these things still bother me, or whatever the fuck. And I was still like met constantly with it turning into a situation where my mother would just make it about her, and I gave up even talking. I gave up even speaking about anything that was going wrong with me. And so I kind of developed that whole like suffer in silence kind of mentality from that and never like talk about anything that I fucking deal with regularly or whatever the fuck until like I can't hold it in anymore. And so that was a sucky situation to realize because it took me seeing that post recently to realize that no one ever said it wasn't my fault. And I did blame myself. And my hypervigilance and you know, well, hypervigilance and hyper independence really started during, after that because everything just kind of went back to normal. Nobody talked to me about it. It was one of those things I didn't want anybody to feel bad. I didn't want anyone else to feel bad over what happened to me as a kid. And so it just became this whole big thing where it's just like, I'll just, forget. And what I did was I tried to make up for it. And this is like where I realized like it was guilt that this whole time that I was holding on to. Because at the time, like I felt bad because now all of a sudden there's only one adult. And my mom at the time was stressed out, and it looked like she went from being like happy with this guy to being absolutely fucking miserable after that. And then it was just like, well, it's my fault that this person is no longer in the home because I did something and it made them do these things to me, and now they're no longer here because I told. And now she's complaining, she's stressed out and all of that shit, and so it's like my fault, right? And so I started, back then trying to make up for the fact that there wasn't another adult in the home. So I tried to need things as little as humanly possible. I tried to, step in and take care of my siblings and all of that stuff. And I burned myself out at fucking between 8 and 9 years old. And what it did was basically teach everybody else around me that they could rely on me far more than what they should have relied on a child for. And it's fucking annoying because like I also realized that my childhood was pretty much torture, because during the time that the abuser was in the house, like, I was being punished for shit that I normally did before he ever entered, our lives. And my mother was finding it funny. And the deep sense of betrayal that I felt and hatred that I felt for both of them, I kind of ignored and kind of forgot about and all of that shit. Because it wasn't fair that I was not only being abused in the home, but also punished for like regular shit. I never knew what the rules were and all of that shit. Whenever my mom was actually in the home, he would like target me and punish me randomly for like the most random things. And then my mother would just either find it funny or be okay with it without any explanation. And I was just like, children, they didn't mean anything back then. And so it was just, you're seen and not heard. You sit in a corner or whatever the fuck, and we play with you whenever the fuck we want to play with you. And other than that, you go and be by yourself or whatever the fuck. And so it was just one of those things where it was just like, I didn't get an explanation on what I did wrong, or even like, don't do it next time kind of warning. It was just straight to punishment, even though these are things that I had been doing forever since before this person came in. So it was basically like, oh, that's my man, I'm gonna stick beside him. And with no layout of the rules and how things are changing or whatever, is just like, oh, well, this is my husband now, and whatever rules that they make up off the top of their head, then this is how this goes. And it really sucks because I grew up in that like male-centered, marriage-centered, children-centered religion, and then they preach that same shit to me as if that was the only and fuck important thing ever. And like, childhood was torture. I never knew when I would be punished or abused or whatever the fuck was going on. Because, I was being abused when she wasn't in the home. I was being punished randomly and in very weird ways while she was in the home. She thought it was fucking funny. I didn't think it was fucking funny. But, an angry child apparently is something to be fucking fun, like, to make fun of and laugh about or whatever the fuck. And so my childhood was torture. And the funny thing is like, when I got older or whatever the fuck, I thought I was having a heart-to-heart with my mom at one point, and it ended up, like, the things that they repeat sometimes is, like, the key that tells you how they feel or what they wanted from you. Because on top of whenever I brought up the abuse, my mom constantly would say that it wasn't her fault and she didn't know. Those were the only things that ever came out of her mouth whenever I would bring it up. And then later on in life, when I tried to, talk to her about the reason, like, kind of rationalize and get an understanding for, some of the stuff that I went through in life and stuff like that, she would just be like, I didn't want you to say you had a hard life. And she repeated that over and over again. I didn't want you to say that you had a hard life. And the thing is like, she didn't want me to say that I had a hard life, but she never expressed that she didn't want me to have a hard life. And, that to me was just like one of those things. Because even after that, I was just absolutely fucking miserable around her. It was annoying. It's like my entire life I never got to breathe. And now, like, I don't have anybody around, so I can breathe more, but at the same time, like, I'm lacking the support that is necessary to, like, kind of get the basic building blocks of regular, human life. And it fucking sucks. And I've only just come to terms with that. And I know I'm recording a lot of videos today. I might just put this out tomorrow, or maybe I'll post it today. I don't fucking know. But yeah, I just, those are the realizations that I've come to recently about my fucking childhood and all that other shit. It's fucking crazy. Absolutely fucking insane.